Welcome all of our guests to the 1997 reenactment of the Battle of Lexington. Very pleased to have you here on such a fine day. We've been taking every opportunity we can to thank all of the Missouri voters who passed the Parks and Soils sales tax last November. This is a 0.1% sales tax, half of which goes to support our state parks. It's through that fund that enables us to provide activities such as this, to maintain our properties such as the Anderson House and the Battle of Lexington and all of our state historic sites and state parks. Here in Lafayette County, you're fortunate to have 2 staffed state historic sites. This is the only county in Missouri that happens to have that honor. Besides the Battle of Lexington, here in Lexington, we have the Confederate Memorial State Historic Site in nearby Higginsville. This is rather unique in the fact that the Battle of Lexington reflects the beginning of the Civil War, and the Confederate Memorial Home reflects the end of the Civil War, as it was a home built in 1890 to take care of the veterans that were unable to care for themselves after the termination of the war. I have the privilege and honor of introducing our guest speaker, who's going to explain a little bit about the Battle of Lexington to you. He is a native of Lexington, and I think most of you are aware of Representative Ike Skelton, who is with us today with his family, his wife Susan Skelton, and their grandson Alexander. We're very pleased to have them here. We appreciate their support. And I'd like to tell you just a little bit about him before he introduces himself, because he's a rather unique individual. Mr. Skelton grew up here in Lexington, attended Lexington High, attended Wentworth Military Academy, went on to the University of Missouri where he did his BA work in history and continued with a law degree there. He's definitely a Missouri fellow, and we're so welcome to have him come back and introduce our Battle of Lexington. I think it's also interesting to observe that he has descendants that fought on the side of the Confederacy, that not only that, but another descendant was at the Confederate home in Higginsville. So he has quite a connection here in Lafayette County. I'd like you all to welcome United States Congressman, representative from the District 4 in Missouri, Lexington's own Ike Skelton.
Very much. Please. Thank you, Jim, for your kind introduction, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are, 136 years after the famous battle that took place on these grounds, the Lexington battlefield. For someone born and raised in Lexington as I was, the battlefield has always been here. As boys, my buddies and I would run along the trenches. As Cub Scouts, we'd play football on this very site. And when our sons grew up here in Lexington, they would fly kites in this area. Yes, to a Lexingtonian, the battlefield is scenic, peaceful, beautiful historic site. But in another day and time, this was a scene of bravery, courage, death, and destruction. It had struggled between the mighty military of the North and the South, the blue and the gray. Both sides in this conflict believed they were fighting for freedom. In defense of that belief, they were willing to endure great hardship, sacrifice, and even death. It is thus fitting that we should pause today on the anniversary of this struggle and pay tribute to those who walked these hills so long ago. This battle, one of the earliest in the tragic war between the states, was a reflection of the deep emotions of the day. The Southerners fighting for the rights of their states, and the Federals fighting to keep the Union indivisible. So let's, in our mind's eye, look back to September 18, 19, and 20 in the year 1861. Lexington was a good-sized community, a river port containing numerous industries and being the outfitting post for the westward movement. Lexington was a way station in the manifest destiny of our country. Confederate Major General Sterling Price, leader of the Missouri State Guard, in the glow of victory at Wilson's Creek near Springfield, brought his troops toward Lexington, which was heavily garrisoned by the Union forces, including a brigade of Irishmen, a regiment of Illinois cavalry, together with several regiments of the Union sympathizing Missouri State militia. 3 days of constant perseverance on behalf of the Confederate besiegers and an honorable endurance on the part of the besieged culminated in the unconditional surrender of the Federal forces. For 2 days, the Battle of Lexington was a battle of sharpshooters. Wherever a hit appeared, skirmishers shot at it. From behind every available obstruction, a merciless fusillade poured upon the Union garrison. Earlier, there was also brilliant fighting in the capture and recapture of Colonel Oliver Anderson's dwelling house, the large brick structure we see only yards from where we stand today. The climax of the battle was on the third day, when the Confederate troops rolled wet hemp bales obtained from the rope factories down near the river, up the hill toward the Union entrenchments, the very same trenches that we see here today. The originator of the hemp bale idea has long been in dispute. As a matter of fact, a local man, Colonel Thomas Hinkle of Wellington, claimed it as his own. In any event, whoever originated it certainly had a clear mathematical mind. Behind those impenetrable moving walls, the Union garrison saw itself surrounded by slowly moving barriers. Unable to stop the Confederate assailants, the Union commander, wisely, Colonel Mulligan, surrendered. This battle brought to the fore the names of 3 Confederate leaders who fought until the very end of the war, gaining renown as leaders of men who wore the gray. Joe Shelby, who was from nearby Waverly, distinguished himself as the commander of the famed Shelby's Iron Brigade. Lexington's Hiram M. Bledsoe continued to the bitter end of that terrible war, gaining fame as an artilleryman. Sterling Price, a former governor, led Confederate troops to the very end of the struggle through numerous battles west of the Mississippi River. More history of this celebrated battle has been discovered over time. In 1932, the remnants of 5 Union soldiers were uncovered during excavation of the old Masonic College grounds nearby. Those 5 Federal soldiers were reburied on November the 11th of that year in a solemn ceremony in that small plot to my left. The main speaker of the day was another Ike Skelton, my father. On that occasion, my father said, "These men gave their very all for the principles of government that they held dear in their hearts." So it is with us today, witnessing the reenactment of this famous struggle to recall the gallantry of those who fought and those who died for their causes. It is not for us to judge the rightness or wrongness of what compelled them to bear arms and participate in this North-South conflict, but it is for us today to reflect upon and draw inspiration from their devotion to duty, their determined efforts, and their military skill. So let us today honor the memory of those who bore the brunt of the battle in those clear September days, 1861, especially those who died here. Today, 136 years after the event, we'll watch the reenactors following the roles played out here in flesh and blood by men of both the North and the South. We will witness the ingenuity of the American Southern leader whose troops used the hemp bales as bulwarks for the advancing charge. Within a few minutes, we will witness another example, a modern one, of American military ingenuity, the B-2 stealth bomber. This futuristic weapon system, which helps guard our country's interests and freedom, is a continuation of those inspired ideas that have been indispensable to Americans engaged in mortal conflict. The human mind, using whatever technology is available, can change the military equation and convert an inferior position into a superior position. In this sense, we can say that there is much in common between the way the Confederate soldiers used bales of hemp in 1861 and the way the U.S. Air Force uses the stealth bomber today. Past and present fused together here in Lexington and over Lexington on this September day, 1997. During the Battle of Lexington, Union forces held the superior position on the hilltop, but they were defeated by the innovative use of hemp bales, which reduced the capability of the Union weapons to find their Confederate enemies. Likewise, the configuration of another weapon of defense stationed in Missouri, the B-2 stealth bomber, allows it to reduce the capability of potential enemy weapons to find it. Two forms of American military ingenuity produce superior results. Both change the military equation of superiority and inferiority in their respective situations. Both are the product of creative, agile, and strategic American minds.